What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here from DataDash, and today is October 16th of 2023. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, I want to do something different here on the channel today. I want to spend some time to talk about some really strong potential altcoin setups that we could make trades on over the next coming weeks and months. As many of you already know by now, I've been remaining relatively bearish in my sentiment, and that has not changed when it comes to the near term, next 6 to 12 months for cryptocurrencies. However, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be opportune setups out there, and there aren't potential discount ranges where either we can find long-term purchases or investments, but also some short-term trades to make some quick returns. So I want to spend some time to talk about those as we go through today's video. If you guys happen to enjoy it, consider dropping a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and kick off the conversation. Now, again, I want to preface here, I'm going to make it very quick, but I do want you guys to really understand here, I'm not going all bullish here just because I'm talking about some trade steps in the market. As I mentioned, opportunity can come in various fashions and in different markets at practically any time, albeit bull markets are where there's a lot more opportunity and it's a lot easier to get things right. But I do want to spend some time today to use this as a format to talk about both technical setups that I look for, the fundamental narratives, and the actual use case or value proposition some of these projects bring, and generally overall what I look for. So I hope it'll provide some value to you guys, no matter if you agree or disagree with my current market sentiment. But let's go ahead and talk about this as we go throughout the video. Now, it is clear by now that there are over, as according to CoinMarketCap, 1.8 million cryptocurrencies out there. I think that's a little bit of an inflated number, but I'm assuming that's including all of the ERC or BEP20 tokens, that include even scam or spam tokens. Let's go ahead and cut out 99% of it. You still have thousands of altcoins out there, and it's a difficult task to find which ones are really exciting. Not to mention, as I mentioned earlier, as we're going into a contractionary environment, this is a period of time where there are going to be a lot of landmines in altcoins, many of which go to zero. And especially as we have increased volatility and a potential recession coming, we got to be relatively smart here. We got to manage our risk properly. And we have to approach things not only with an open mind, but one that also comes with a degree of scrutiny and filtering. So I want to go ahead and demonstrate some projects here today that I think really fit in the spotlight, fit in the few edge cases within crypto that actually have some potential here, both maybe in the short term and in the long term. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about a fundamental play here that's got me really excited, and that is Radix. Now, many of you have possibly heard me talk about Radix here on the channel before, and for full transparency, we've had them as a long-term sponsor on the channel before. They are not currently a sponsor, so they're not paying me to say this or go out there, and I honestly don't do that when it comes to these top 3 coin or kind of top altcoin plays out there. I never do that with sponsors. Key thing here, though, to talk about is why I'm optimistic on Radix, and also why we worked with them for so long here on this channel. Radix DLT is one of the few layer 1 protocols from a fundamental perspective that could actually reignite the fire of DeFi. DeFi, or decentralized finance, which I was really early to. I was a big adopter in early 2019 when the term was just kind of getting formed before there really even was a label for DeFi. But essentially speaking, all of the decentralized exchanges, lending and borrowing protocols that allow you to earn interest or borrow crypto, essentially all of these use cases that have bubbled up over the past couple of years have pretty much fallen flat over the last 2 years. There's been no innovation in DeFi, minimal improvements, nothing that would kind of scream a killer application. And it's a lot to do, not so much with the fact that there aren't innovators out there or people who want to build, but there are issues with Ethereum as a network. There are clear barriers to development, to deployment, for security, to scalability that Ethereum is going to run into to keep any of these great applications from being built or adopted in the long term. Radix DLT fixes a lot of these, and the biggest reason for this is its native programming language, Scripto, an asset-oriented language that not only dramatically simplifies the process of writing smart contracts or decentralized applications, but outside of that as well, prevents a lot of the security breaches and vulnerabilities of developing in Solidity on the Ethereum network. So going from Solidity, which again can take thousands of lines of code to build something, say like Uniswap, that allows you to swap from one asset to another and create liquidity pools, that can be crunched down into less than 200 lines of code on the Radix DLT network. And that is really exciting for me personally. And again, I'm talking about it here purely off the cuff here. I like Radix as a network. Out of all the layer 1 protocols out there, Radix fundamentally has this ability to dramatically simplify development, remove the security vulnerabilities, and really go out there and make a serious dent. And there are already a lot of people out there who are building within the ecosystem. I recommend just kind of going through the website, seeing some of the major improvements that Radix offers, not just from a developer perspective, but also from a user experience perspective. There are a lot of key facets here that Radix is focusing on. And while I'm not going to spend the whole time here to talk about all of them in this video, the website does it great justice, and there's a very nice illustration here of the kind of powerful full stack of Radix, including its wallet, Scripto plus the Radix engine, and Cerberus, which allows for much higher degrees of scalability. I want to spend some time to talk about the technicals here, the price action. I want to spend some time to focus in on Radix as a token. And what I'm using today is EXRD. This is a one-to-one backed ERC20 token on the Ethereum network that you can trade through Uniswap and maybe some other exchanges that has an actual XRD token or Radix token, essentially, the core crypto for its network. So I'm just using that here because it does have a longer price history here as the token launched in 2020 before it started to get some official exchange listings for XRD. Now, the big thing here I want to talk about is that as Radix was going into one of its main network upgrades, Babylon, this was again a really exciting event for Radix. There was a lot of optimism going in here through December 2022 into the fall when the network launch officially happened. However, this is, as per usual, a typical buy the hype, sell the news event, where essentially the news event led towards a continued sell-off here. It's not that the network launch didn't go well, it's just what happens in crypto at the end of the day. But my key point here is this: seeing as we've broken through that trend line and it seems like we're looking for a new range of support, I'm looking for potential value ranges here for Radix. And I gotta be honest with you guys, the first range here that looks really exciting to me is potentially coming back down here to 3 cents for a double bottom instead of coming down here towards the absolute lows. Getting Radix or EXRD at this range, anywhere between 3 cents to 2.2 cents, would be incredibly exciting for me as a long-term trade setup. And there's a couple reasons for it. From a technical perspective, if I'm either getting a double bottom, which is generally a bullish thing, same as how a double top is bearish, it's showing either support or resistance, and that price level is being retested multiple times. But outside of this, we're potentially getting it at the bottom of this descending wedge, which is a long-term bullish pattern where the resistance line is declining faster than the support line, showing that there's resilience and giving an easier ability for price to clear through that resistance line as it's accelerating faster. This range here would be a value range I'd get really excited about Radix personally. That's just my general opinion. It's not about getting it at an exact level. It's not about waiting for the absolute lows, but potentially starting to dollar cost average more and more and building some pretty sizable positions at that lower range. That's what I would look for here personally if I was building a long-term position in some of these protocols. And again, as you guys can see, if you know how much Cardano, how much Ethereum, how much BNB, or all these other layer 1 protocols, Avalanche, I mean, I could just go through the list here, Polygon, layer 1, layer 2 solutions out there, when they really go through a proper bear market correction and re-accelerate during bull markets, especially when they have much more further adoption to go, as Radix is really still, I think, a novel new network. I think this is not only going to allow for a lot of value creation, but it's going to allow for the token price and the general network to be valued much, much higher here, well above $1, potentially higher in the next bull market. Even when that comes, right? We have to be curious about whether or not that sentiment is going to return anytime soon. But if it does, I think Radix is readily prepared, seeing as there's a lot being built on the network. And the more you start to see being built on the network, the more conviction you can have that that's where developers are putting their time. And on top of that, that it's easier to deploy ideas and build more value for the users of the network. That's the key goal here at the end of the day. If you can make developers' jobs easy and you can make the user experience much cleaner than the horrendous experience that it is right now using MetaMask and most of crypto applications, then you've got a golden opportunity. Even if we just return back to some degree of speculation and relatively weak narratives in crypto, I don't think that that's what we want. We want fundamental development here. But I'm just saying at the end of the day, I think there's a lot to improve on, and Radix has really hit on all of that. So I'm excited to see some real world applications bringing DeFi into the real world, and I think that addressable market increase is going to give Radix a lot of potential. So essentially, we're looking forward to enter back down in this range here and break through and essentially trend higher here for a long-term trade. I think it's a great risk reward setup personally, but you could also, if you're willing to wait a little bit longer and play it a bit more safer, wait until there's broader momentum in the market and buy when there's a breakout on the descending wedge. Those are two ways to play it. Now, if you were to buy positions down here, again, if it's capital that you're willing to lose, then maybe you can just hold it and just see what happens and wait for it to potentially accelerate higher. But you can also set stops a little bit lower from this descending wedge to a point where you're not going to easily get essentially knocked out of your position, but also have some discipline to have applied risk management. Outside of that as well, one thing I like here is taking a look at ratios. Now, if you guys are analyzing altcoins and you're not looking at ratios, I mean it as a friend here. I'm not trying to be rude or speak down to you. You're doing yourself a disservice. Now, the reason why ratios are so important, and we're one of the few channels that really focuses in on these ratios outside of looking at typical, dollar pairings or against pairings against Bitcoin. We like to look against altcoins against Ethereum and various other plays in the market, because these ratios will give you a good idea as to when there are discount opportunities where buyers usually come in, and also periods of time when maybe that altcoin is overextended against other leading plays like Ethereum. And take a look at EXRD versus Wrapped Ethereum. What a beautiful ratio here. And what do you know? We're getting very close here to when buyers usually come in and provide support. So this to me is definitely a range where I'm starting to get a little bit excited here. I think the potential reward outweighs the potential risk here at this range. And the more we continue to hold in this range and potentially start to break towards the upward line of that bottom range of support, if I take a look at history, I can see here, even during the bear market in April, I see a 15% move on the week, 52.9%, the week after 28%, and then again hitting our line of resistance, which would be a range to start taking profit. I would even, again, just make it clear here that you want to start taking profits kind of ahead of time here, as other traders out there, smart money, is watching these ratios. Most investors aren't, they're going in blind, but again, you got to be a little bit less greedy here and essentially be able to take profits. If you're looking to just do a short-term trade, that is. If you like Radix long-term, this ratio may completely snap in the next bull market, meaning that we clear through this resistance, kind of like what we did in November 2021, and maybe even go even higher. So it depends on your time frame here, but you can see back in November 2021, albeit that was during a more optimistic time, you see the momentum here in a week, 163%, 87% the next week. So these ratios can be incredibly valuable for you here, irrespective if you like Radix, long term, or if you like it from a fundamentals perspective. So keep an eye on these, and again, consider building ratios here against other cryptos. I'll show you how you can do it. In this case, we have a trading pair for Radix against ETH, as it is traded on Uniswap, but outside of that as well, if you want to build like custom ratios out there, I'll show one here on the next crypto, so we'll get to that in a moment. But that's it for Radix. As you can see here, 200% move against Ethereum. The key point here, again, I want to emphasize about ratios is not only going to help us, find discount opportunities and maybe ranges where there'd be resistance, but if I'm looking to maximize returns, if I think the market is going to be sort of optimistic for the next few weeks or next few months, that there might be a continuation of the current relief rally, or maybe just some short-term period of optimism in altcoins. Generally speaking, I want to get something that's going to outpace Bitcoin. I want to get something that's going to outpace Ethereum, and simply give me a really solid framework, potentially make some great returns really beyond Ethereum, as I mentioned earlier, like really something that could, not only double, potentially triple those returns. And we can see here that a 200% return, that's a triple on valuations, right? 100% is doubling your valuation, but on top of that, going to 200%, that's a 3x opportunity. So I'd be really interested in these kind of setups here. The next thing I want to talk about here is in the GameFi space, and that is Gala. Now, we haven't really talked much about Gala on this channel here. And again, we've never worked with them as a sponsor. Not paying for me to say this, guys. Always just want to share that for transparency, because I know there are some content creators out there who aren't so much transparent on their sponsorships and kind of who they work with. The key thing here, though, I want to say is that for Gala is one of the plays in the GameFi space. They have a lot of different games they've built, some that are more simple than others, but generally speaking, well, obviously it's not of the same degree of scale of growth, and I don't think it'll ever get that big. Gala itself, I think of it as similar to Netflix in the sense that it has its own content library, or more specifically, if you want to keep it in the context of gaming, similar to how Activision and Blizzard, as well as EA and all these game publishers, have their own types of brands and specific games that are tied towards their company or entity. Well, in this case, Gala itself is a decentralized network that has a whole range of different games that utilize the underlying currency of Gala as the kind of native utility token to purchase NFTs and use as a medium of exchange exchange for payments and use cases within the games and experiences that it offers. Not to mention, if we take a look at Gala from a fundamental perspective, Gala not only has a whole range of different games within its library that it has developed, many of which are live already that you can play, or some of them are in beta or in development, a continuing expanding library. And again, this is why I come to the kind of analogy of Netflix or the Xbox One Game Pass, where you've got this content library. There's more opportunity here for value creation and potential experiences that people really resonate with. And if one or two of these games really takes off, Gala could be one of those fundamental long-term plays to watch that really could set a lot of demand for Gala as a token. But generally speaking here, the key point at the end of the day that excites me is that Gala itself, being a utility token here, is the kind of core currency within all of its games, as it expands into other areas like music as well as film. There's a whole range of different areas where this could really start to take off here long-term. Now again, from a fundamentals perspective, I'm not here to completely vouch for Gala as a long-term play yet. I haven't done enough proper due diligence of testing out some of the games and some of the ideas around the project, but generally speaking, from a fundamentals perspective, that's what I want to see. I want to see innovation going on. I want to see a lot of failures and a few isolated plays that really get people to stick around. And if you think about Netflix, there's probably a ton of exclusive Netflix content, but it's a few of those shows and series that they launched that are why people subscribe and why Netflix is a multi-$100 billion media company. So the same point here goes with Gala. Essentially speaking, if we take a look at the price chart here, there's a couple different charts I wanted to take a look at. First off, the Ethereum chart here. While long term, again, this has been declining as we essentially, this is only going back towards November 2021, we can generally start to see here when they're oversold and overbought periods of time for Gala, which I think is quite valuable here for short-term trades. That's again where ratios come in. In this case, it's GALA. ETH, Gala, Ethereum. But outside of this as well, we've also got the chart here on the USD or Tether chart here going all the way back since September of 2021. Now again, this for me is very exciting to look at this long-term chart here, because essentially, as we talked about earlier, this is a descending wedge. The resistance line over the long term is moving down faster than the support line is, and that to me is signaling that, hey, sometime here going into 2023, there may be a big breakout opportunity here for a trade. It may not be the beginning of a long-term upswing in a full-scale bull market, but it could be one where Gala, doubles, triples. Again, we've seen these altcoins make these moves. In December 2022, Gala went from 1.5 cents all the way up here towards 6 cents. We saw it here during the bull market here, through one of its moves, going from around 2 cents all the way up to 13 or 14 cents. And then after building a new base, going from 8 cents all the way up to 82 cents. So it's not too crazy to think that it could make some of these moves. I'm not saying it has to, but I think we've got some really great risk reward setups, because if this is our baseline of support for entry, then essentially we've got a great risk reward profile where we can set, generally speaking, some kind of stop loss below these levels. I'm just kind of pulling out on my hat here, right? I could set up a 30%. Let's say I make an entry here at around 1.3 cents. I could set my stop loss at 1 cent or maybe a little bit below there, as I don't get triggered at a big even level. Sometimes we can have some maybe quick sell-offs below the line and then it gets bought up. Generally speaking, like a 30% stop loss. And from there, I could look for ranges of resistance and potential price. So for example, one of them that stands out here was a range of prior support and resistance here, which is generally around this range at around 4.5 cents, all the way up here towards around 6 cents. So generally speaking, that's a range that really sticks out to me here. Another level as well that might be potential resistance is coming towards this range here at around 7.5 cents. So when you're talking about things in USDT terms, you can really start to look for fractional parts, especially if you have these large token supplies where, again, the token will trade for like a couple cents. You have to look at those half cent marks, the cent marks. Those are really important here from a trader's perspective. But that's kind of the range here where I would look for some opportunity. And it wouldn't be that these would be the first ranges I take profit. As this is moving up, I'd recommend, guys, that you have more active take profit levels depending on the situation in the market, because if there's not much liquidity, then you want to make sure you get out of that trade if you're not really interested in it long term well in advance here, because there may not be the kind of a bid side support to get out of your position. So you want to set asks and really be that liquidity where people are buying into and stuff who are coming a little bit later to the trend, right? That's just the reality of markets at the end of the day. If you want to be on the winning side of the trade, you got to be a little bit more skeptical. You got to be a little bit more conservative. You can't get greedy as other people are who just want to catch on and hope that it's going to go to the moon. So that's something that I would say for like a short-term trade. Essentially speaking, if you do get that breakout opportunity, essentially where price comes, down to this range here, snaps higher, and then maybe trades in that range, it comes down, and then starts to clear higher, then yeah, maybe that's a sign here that this is ready to move higher, especially if we're in a broader bull market. I don't know if that's the case yet. I don't think Gala really has any killer games yet, but they're one of the few projects that seems to have the funding, the development resources, and the tools to be able to build that potential next big experience. And even the hope and estimation of it in a more optimistic environment can mean that Gala is valued more than it currently is. So just keep that in mind here. And then again, at the end of the day, it's important to do your own due diligence around it and take a look into it. One last chart I want to take a look at, again, how you can use ratios. I did Gala USDT divided by ETH USDT. And the reason why I did this is because this gives us a little bit longer history. So earlier, as I showed you guys, I think it was this chart here, yeah, the Gala Ethereum chart. This didn't give us enough price history if we just typed in the Gala ETH pair on Binance. So you can always do this, where you divide essentially, one currency pair by another. Make sure that the second currency that each is utilizing is the same. So USDT or BTC in most cases, and that way the USDT cancels it out. And it's basically like Gala divided by Ethereum. And we can see that this gives us a little bit more price history here rather than just November 2022. I think what you've got here is a potential deviation scenario. If we start to see Gala outpacing Ethereum by another 25% here and getting back above this golden line that was prior support, that could be a deviation swing play that essentially leads price to start whipsawing higher here. Not saying it has to go that high, but just using it as kind of a visual metaphor here. All right, so we've talked about Gala. Here's our second setup. What is our third setup here in the market that we're watching for? Well, the third setup is, surprisingly, Dogecoin. Now, I want to spend some time here to be very clear about this, guys. I know a lot of you are like, Nick, a meme coin? Don't you always speak out against meme coins? Don't you say how it makes you frustrated? Well, I got to be honest with you guys here. I'm going to be entirely realistic. At the end of the day, I don't like the fact that meme coins make up such a big amount of the crypto space. I, to be completely frank, think that we should be putting more attention and focus towards those who are building really exciting projects. But if you're asking me from a trader's perspective at the end of the day, I'm going to chase where the momentum is. And to be honest and completely frank, there are not many exciting fundamental projects out there in crypto. I have to say that that kind of shallow bet that, hopefully the speculation will just come back, that's about all crypto's got going for it right now. That's where my bearish side comes in, and I'm going to be honest with you guys about that. There is not a single DeFi application out there that really excites me right now. I'm hoping that on Radix we can really start to see some, no pun intended, some radically different applications that are actually more useful and tapped into the real world. And I hope that in Game 5, for example, Gala may have that opportunity to really go out there and, maybe, expand out and get some more game titles in there, get more users and players, and improve on its user experience. But putting all that aside here, one thing that has sat around for a long time in the crypto space, it's time tested, and also we have a lot of price action to work with, is Dogecoin. It is the longest standing meme coin. It is not only that, but it's a proof of work cryptocurrency. So in a growing environment of regulatory scrutiny, I know that it may seem like Dogecoin is an easy target, but it's a proof of work cryptocurrency. The SEC does not have jurisdiction over it. It's got massive listings across the board on all exchanges. It's got deep liquidity. And because we have all this to work with here, I can say with a pretty good certainty that there's some pretty good trade setups with Dogecoin if you know what to look for. And essentially, while a lot of people are thinking that this is the low range for Dogecoin where we're at now, that it's going to start to bottom here, I think Dogecoin's got a ways to go, like the majority of the crypto market here. I think that even against Bitcoin, it could come down here towards 150 sats, here around 130 sats, and even down here towards 100 sats. These are some levels that I'd look at to dollar cost average. You could get in a little bit earlier, but that's where I'd be really going heavy on this position. And why is that? Well, I'm simply just taking a look at history. Dogecoin historically goes through these 90% plus corrections in price from top to bottom. Again, you can generally see, you're just kind of scanning through the chart here. We can get it exactly here and kind of modify a little bit, but you generally see here that from top to bottom, these pullbacks, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, generally speaking, are going to be well over 90% for the most part. Sometimes a little bit shorter, like 86% against Bitcoin. And I think with how extended Dogecoin went during this run up here, I think it's at a minimum, a conservative estimate that we would see a 90% pullback in its price. I think it's very, very conservative to ask for that. It's not me being overly greedy on entry or anything, or wanting to get it at, practically zero. No, I think that, after coming up from around 15 sats all the way up here towards 1287, literally coming up close when things were really going parabolic to doing a 100x, that's a little too much against Bitcoin, which was already doing well as an asset in and of itself. So that's something that would interest me here. And taking a look again at the dollar chart here, I think it signals here that looking at any of the potential long-term lines of support from the past few years, I think that, again, these are, not to mention they're ascending lines of support. I think that it's easily understandable that Dogecoin would pull back and have one of its biggest USD corrections of around 97%. It'd be very much in line with its pullback in 2014, a little bit more than what it had here between February 2018 and March 2020. And outside of that as well, it touched one of these support lines. I think the worst case scenario here for Dogecoin is coming back 99%. But I mean, again, I don't see that really happening personally. And I'm even a bear here. So yeah, those are some different plays we're watching here, guys. Again, I look at the long-term time frames. I look for heavy capitulation. I understand that there is a big difference, and this is a big thing that I think all of us have to understand, a big difference between a 90% correction like we almost have now in Dogecoin and a, say, 97% correction. That is a huge difference in percentage terms on entry, a 68% entry difference here from current prices to that target range. So it's not about just DCA all the time. You need to be much more conservative about your entries, in my opinion. And you need to think about the plays that are timeless, that are going to survive the changing environments. They don't have to be something so niche. It doesn't have to be a small cap altcoin. In fact, I would avoid small cap altcoins in this environment. There's no sign that that kind of excess of risk is going to come back to crypto anytime soon, or the kind of risk-taking activities. And I think these three different cryptocurrencies, they offer strong fundamental plays, strong technical setups that we can continue to watch for here over the next couple of weeks and months that can potentially give us some great entries. Now, I didn't spend all the time today to talk about the absolute entry points and absolute risk management, but we did hint towards some of it. Setting up proper stop losses, I think a pretty deep double-digit territory like 25, 30%. So to give yourself the room for the volatility of crypto to not get stopped out, and also to not use excessive leverage here. On spot markets, you can make great returns here in some of these plays. So I would really stay away from leverage at a minimum. At a maximum 2x leverage in crypto. Beyond that, you are just purely speculating, in my personal opinion. If you're looking for longer term swing setups for a couple of weeks and months, you're setting yourself up in a really risky position if you're using sizable amounts of capital. If you're using smaller amounts or something, it's a different story. You can set up higher leverage entry points, whatever. But my key point here is that there is opportunity out there at all times. And the one thing I want to let you guys know about, though, and this is the big point, if you guys have been, smart enough to stick around here towards the end of the video, I'm going to let you know about the biggest secret here. And this is just the truth of the reality at the end of the day, guys, is that while there are opportunities here in crypto, there are also opportunities in other markets. And it may very well be, as we've talked about here on this channel, the painful reality we got to face is that a bull market in crypto may not come for a long time. And even if it does return, it may not be the best performing asset class as a whole. And trying to find these isolated plays can be difficult sometimes, right? It may be that these three plays today may not be the winning plays. So I want to spend some time, though, to talk about what is important to understand, which is that there are going to be opportunities also in equity markets. Those that potentially 5x, 10x, 20x over the next 2 years. And we want to focus more on those plays. We want to know about a few coordinated trades out there that we can really vet, that we can really go through, see that they have the technical setups, see that they have the fundamental narratives, and essentially build up towards a large swing move as more liquidity and trading comes towards these plays. So I want to spend some time here to let you guys know that in the Dash Report, our newsletter here, we are constantly talking about the next market-leading sectors. This not only will include a focus on cryptocurrencies as these narratives do start to come up and get us excited, but outside of that, in equity markets, there are 3 key market-leading sectors that we're really optimistic about here that have to do with key industries we believe are going to continue to lead forward and maybe even outpace just dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. So if you're looking for those alternative sectors, if you're looking for diversity, and if you're looking to get access towards our trade alerts, our 20-page plus newsletter each month, our mid-month webinar, which is going to be happening here today, it's going to be one where we take some questions from you guys in the community. We dive into the charts. If you guys are looking for all of that and more, then definitely consider checking out the Dash Report. We give a 360-degree view on all opportunities in the market. It's not only a great way where you guys can support the channel here. You can get 20% off if you sign up on an annualized basis. It's much less than a cup of coffee a day. for the cost. But outside of that as well, you guys can get that extra kind of 25-33% on top of the free content we put here in the channel, my activities in the market, and also get some really great data from others in participating within the dashboard discussion group. So we got a whole great community there, hundreds of great members, and we'd love to have you guys join us there. So check out the link down below in the description if you guys want to join into the dashboard community. But that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this mix up here, focusing more on altcoins and some opportunities in the market. But that's going to be it from me today. I hope you guys have a fantastic day wherever you are, and great start to your week. And I'll see you guys right back here. Oh my God, I had like Southern accent here. Right back here on Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care, everyone. Yeehaw.